Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Nazir, page 42, which addresses an important principle that is often quoted, but not necessarily are we aware of its source. And that is rubo kikulo, that when we have a majority of a thing, the law is it's as though the entire thing has been completed. And this has a lot of halakhic applications that we see throughout the entire Torah. The question is, how do we see that when it comes to a Nazir? So one of the things that a Nazir needs to do at the end of their days of counting, let's say for 30 days, we know they bring sacrifices, but on the seventh day, it mentions in the verse that they're supposed to cut their hair. Now, when we cut their hair, as we mentioned previously, it's necessary that all of their hair is cut. And it cannot just be with scissors, but rather the verse specifically says that one actually needs to use a razor, which, as we mentioned previously, is quite unusual because typically one is not allowed to cut their hair or beard with a straight edge razor. However, the Torah specifically says that when it comes to a Nazir, not only is he allowed to cut his hair that way, he actually has to. There is no other option. Now, what if he decides to cut some of his hair? That's not enough. In fact, even if he would just leave just two hairs on his entire head, he's completely bald, but there's two hairs left, we say that that in itself is a problem, and it's as though he didn't do it at all. He needs to have all of his hair completely cut. And it's derived because there's additional words. It keeps saying to shave and to shave. Why does it have to keep saying that he has to keep shaving and shaving? It's because shaving a little bit or even a lot is not enough. It's telling us that when it comes to a Nazir, it's everything. It's all or nothing. You must remove all of your hair. And therefore, interestingly enough, as a little bit of a flip, that's how we know this concept of rubo kikulo, because only when it comes to a Nazir, where the Torah specifies and adds extra words to say, you must make sure that all of his hair is cut. Leaving even two hairs is not sufficient. So therefore, we can derive in all other places and all other situations, provided that you just did the majority, you did most of it, then it's as though you've actually accomplished the whole thing. So that's actually, interestingly, the source of how we know this concept. But it's an important thing for us to recognize as well. A lot of times people in life feel that it's an all or nothing mentality. They say, for example, why should I keep kosher? I don't keep Shabbos. Why should I pray in the morning when the reality is that I don't observe all the holidays so well? That is not in accordance to Jewish philosophy. Obviously, it would be great for you to be able to perform and adhere to as many, if not all, the commandments. But the reality is that it's not an all or nothing thing. If a person is able to take upon themselves a lot, and even the majority, then that is also something of value. But it's also important to recognize that if you cross that threshold that you're already doing so much as the majority, eventually you may end up doing more. And a person shouldn't feel, well, again, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. A person should do as much as they can. And with the proper growth mindset, there's a greater likelihood that you as an individual are going to continue to do more. But it's often the way of us to shut down. And we see this beyond religion. A person may feel, you know what, I have too much weight to lose. And let's say even if a person is dieting, you slack off for one day and all of a sudden you feel guilty and then the whole diet gets thrown out the window. That certainly is not the proper approach. Even though sometimes maybe it's better to always be careful in your diet, but if sometimes you slip, that's not the end of the world. It's not all or nothing. You have to be able to recognize that sometimes things don't always work exactly perfect, but nonetheless, you still have to try to remain focused, again, with that growth mindset. And if a person does that, again, the possibility of doing a lot and getting to the majority, eventually, kikulo, you'll end up doing it all.